Welcome back to the Moodboard. My name is Aaron.
And this is Caesar.
And we're two creatives having meaningful conversations to help you unlock your creative potential. We're back again with another episode, and we were just talking about our future plans for the Moodboard, and we're going to share maybe a little bit of preview of what we're thinking about. So we've been doing this for about 22, technically it's 22 episodes. We lost one, the infamous
Rest in peace.
the lost episode. And so this is technically our 22nd, but it's going to be released as our 21st episode. And we're thinking about the different ways of improving for the next season and iterating on what we've started here.
Totally. No, Aaron and I, we were discussing effective ways to still generate really good content, meaningful content that, we want to stay on top of what's relevant at the moment of the news as well. We want to voice our opinion. We want to make sure that our communities, and we also want to be a little bit time on marketing our podcast
And big picture,
so we're thinking of different ways to have a wider outreach and spending a little bit of time can do, but also we would like to please share always our comment, because that for us means a lot and far.
Yeah, when people share their experience, if they've benefited from listening to the podcast and they drop a comment, it helps other people discover the content as well. That's just the way the mechanics of the internet and social, that's how they work. So it would be very beneficial, very helpful to the podcast to let us know what you're thinking about in the comments, and messaging us, letting us know what things you're enjoying, if you have any ideas for improving and that kind of thing. Because when we're recording every week, I think that's why the TV shows and all kinds of media, they take a break to take a step back and reevaluate.
Recharge.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we should do that very soon, because we are nearing, we're past 20
the
episodes
holidays.
now. Yeah.
Right. And the holidays are around the corner.
True.
So we're gonna start thinking about definitely how to structure it, but in a way that doesn't hinder the content, doesn't hinder the conversation, or we don't want to be behind the news either. But we just want to be strategic about what we do, how we do it.
Yeah, because every time that you take on something like this, you want to think about how to make it sustainable. Like when we first started, I had no idea how much work goes into every single episode, right? Like we really didn't have a picture of what that looked like. And that's there's this funny joke in the development world, engineer world, is that it's like a play off of that John F. Kennedy quote where we do the hard things not because they're easy, but because we didn't know they would be this hard. But that's the best way to do things, though, just going for them and then discovering you have to reevaluate later.
And segueing this quote into a different conversation, I think it's important to keep that in mind with everything that you do, and to not let not having all the answers get in the way of you getting the answers, or
Absolutely,
or answers that you didn't know you needed or that you discover. So it's important for you to always be open-ended and open-minded. And I love quotes. I love those quotes that like truly trigger thoughts and trigger
Yeah.
conversations
Yeah.
because they're like this. They embody so much,
Absolutely.
and
They like compress
and
information.
yeah, quotes,
I
and
was
they're iconic.
oh
Yeah,
100%. Like that quote is so the John F. Kennedy quote too. Like the original was we don't wait, I forgot. It's like
we don't do things because
they're
they're easy, but
easy.
because we didn't know how to do
No,
them.
the original
Oh,
is completely different. It's we it's something about doing the things not because they're easy, but because they're hard, which makes for a really great inspirational quote. But I like the remix a lot better.
hmm,
But on that topic of experimentation, yesterday I picked up this book called Letters. I bought this book 2 years ago. Do you ever go into the bookshop and you look at a book and you're like, it speaks to you? You're not going to read it until like maybe a couple years down the line. That happens to me all the time. So I picked up this book 2 years ago called Letters to a Young Scientist. I just thought it was interesting. I'm always
where
into
did you
like,
find it?
it was like a bookstore somewhere in upstate New York. It was just like a small bookstore and it was right there in a section. It had a really shiny cover and I picked it
Hmm.
up. And yesterday I just decided to skim through it, see what I could find. Always a good practice to keep books all over the house, and you don't have to finish it right then and there, but just take a look, take a little peek. And I found this quote where he says something along the lines of most people have their perception that scientific experiments are very precise, they're very like measured and things like that. And he's
Right.
like, when there's a lot of money on the line, when it's high stakes, yes, you should do that. But you learn the most from quick experimentation, just quickly
Hmm.
trying out things.
Quick and dirty. Yeah.
Exactly. And it just got me thinking about all the different types of experiments that we are constantly engaging in. For example, when you cold email somebody, that's an experiment, right? When you share your work, that's an experiment. You don't know what's going to happen when you share your work online. You don't know what might resonate with people, what will take off. And so it just
Hmm.
got me thinking about that. Like you never know when a question, a proposal might lead to a collaboration venture or a podcast. You never know.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to add to that because this week I have been on on that mode of pitching things, preparing materials to pitch. I'm actually working on a couple pitches decks to present for hopefully potential new projects, new business. I've for the first time I've come into becoming friends with
Oh,
because I a friend of mine told me like just write what you have in mind and then tell the AI prompt to make it sound professional. And I tried it. I have been trying the AI from Instagram because it has this like option to do it. So I was like, okay, let me give it a try. Let me put it there and see what happens. And it did a pretty good job at wording and saying things in a way that sound professional, uh, but they still get the same message across.
yeah.
And I think sometimes for the creative process, that's what sometimes for creatives, it's hard to perceive how things are coming across. We know we're doing the right thing, like what we're doing is right, but how we're presenting them should how we're presenting them, that's where we have to be mindful of how we're presenting our work.
100%.
And sometimes young professional students come to me with these dilemmas of, hey, I want to get this job, I want to be in this place in my career. Why am I hitting a roadblock? And so, like, I talk to them and I say, well, look at what you're presenting and how you're presenting it,
Yeah.
and then evaluate if those two have a balance. And then also, if you want to be a fullware designer, make sure that you present fullware related projects on your portfolio. Despite of you maybe not having the experience, but at least present fullware related projects, and also present them in a way that a little bit like try to gauge the industry standard and then present something along those lines.
Yeah.
So yeah, back to AI, it was very helpful. I think I will use it again. Highly
Yeah.
recommend it.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw someone tweet earlier today about the relationship between the people making things with AI. There's this fear, I know, amongst people that there's going to be, it's rightly that there will be a flood of, we're already seeing it, right? A flood of content that's, I forget what the word they're using. I think it's called slop, right? AI slop. So it's just like generated trash or whatever on the internet,
Oh,
right? And the tweet was saying something along the lines of, yeah, there's going to be that, but there's also going to be individuals who are using AI to create really great things, really great content, because it speeds up the
right.
process that, you know, would otherwise slow you down. Or it's just going to be, you know, it's going to be the 3D printer of ideas,
Hmm.
and it's up to you to take it to that next level,
How
to
do
that.
you use it?
You're not going to compare a 3D printed lamp with a lamp that has been produced by a manufacturing process using steel and using high quality.
By Naoto Fukasawa.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's really interesting, and I'm glad you've had that positive experience, because I've also
Right.
had so many positive experiences. I think when it comes to not positive experiences, it's really come down to just the AI not doing exactly what I wanted it to do, and that's fine. You learn from that
Mm-hmm.
process because you're training it, but you're also training yourself on how to collaborate with it
Right.
better.
Yeah.
So there's a lot
I,
there
I
for
ag-
us to explore.
Totally. I agree with that. I was gonna, from this experience, I, as you said, AI is just a tool and it depends on how we use it. It depends on us curating what we do at the end of the day with AI. And I think it's a great tool that, yes, could help facilitate, but it's not going to do the work for you. So that's something for us to point, for people to be mindful of. You're not going to present, if you're in school, you're not going to present what AI spit out for you.
Precisely.
I think that's for a personal process. Hey, I bound some ideas of AI, but the project that I did, it was made by me from start to finish. And here are the skill sets that I learned through doing it. And here I'm applying the skill sets that I need to work on in order for me to be successful, but I'm not presenting what AI made for me.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have, that's the equivalent of going on a Google search engine,
Right.
looking for something, copy pasting something, and presenting that. That's the equivalent of it.
Yeah, that's good. I've also thought about it in the way that we had in my first internship, we had this middle school kid come in to do a shadow for a couple days. And I just think about the work that they did. You know, they had never experienced design studio before or had any knowledge of design. So they were just, you know, they were having a blast coming up with things. And the way I think about it is this, it's this Chat GPT, at least in its current iteration, it's that little intern, right? That is creating things for you. And sometimes it really is beneficial.
It's really good.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It contributes. But I mean, if you were a self-respecting person, designer, you would never present what that intern gave you as your work.
Have to polish it.
Yeah,
It's
for
very
sure.
raw.
Yeah.
It's definitely a different way of working, and it makes me think of this process. It's a process around a rechanneling or rethinking how to use 3D printing, because one of the challenges for 3D printing is how long it takes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is this approach, and I've seen it on furniture.
And material.
Metal, yeah, metal 3D printers that like do a rough shape really fast, and then the CNC finishes, or you can, I don't know, a different process finishes the rough shape. So in some way,
Yeah.
3D printing is doing, and I think that's, for me, makes more sense.
Yeah.
Instead of 3D printing doing every detail that you did on the design, it's gonna take 2 days versus, I don't know how long a rough shape takes, and then being finished by another process, but I'm I'm assuming like you're at least doing a half or a fraction of the time.
It's like you
Those are
making it by
that's
hand.
so those are the type of approach we should have with AI, in terms of we need to gauge how much of something is done by AI, and then we polish it, we finish it.
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
yeah,
The
but again, no, no, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to add that the way the mental model that I've started to use for myself is we have become almost like creative directors, conductors, if you will,
Mm,
of
mm.
these AIs, these LLMs. Try saying that really fast. It's a tongue twister. um, and so being able to do things that you previously were not able to because of a technical barrier is really the most exciting part for me. It's not that the AI is going to do the work for me, it's that it's giving me new superpowers, or it's giving me new
Right,
ways of approaching work that would otherwise have required me to team up with someone with that expertise. So
right,
now, me with my rudimentary understanding of algorithms can go into an AI and say, hey, cook me a script that I can put into Blender and create this intricate pattern for me that would have taken me maybe 2 days to try to figure out, read the documentation and experiment, so the iteration process is a lot quicker, similar to what a 3D printer allows designers to do. And that's like iterate quite rapidly rather than sanding flow models by hand, which is also a good thing, but it's a good skill to know in case your 3D printer
of
breaks down.
course.
But
Yeah,
it's not practical in a real life setting, in a real life, like real world thing, because it would cost, it's about business, right? Like how much can you produce in this amount of time? You're going to go with the route that's more effective, right?
Right. Yes.
So you think that you're
That's a
using, oh, sorry.
no. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you're seeing a practical use for your workflow now.
Yes.
Okay.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. I
Yeah.
am seeing a practical use for it, especially English is not my first language. And sometimes I might say things in odd ways or just differently, or maybe I might not use the proper terminology, whatever. I just want to like let me run it by AI to make sure that it like polishes. Then maybe I change some things here and there, but I I at least make sure that I have that option of running it by something that by AI that can put it in such a way that it sounds good.
Dude, have you
Uh,
tried the conversational version where you just press the microphone and you just talk to it like this?
I have not. No.
They took off the voice that sounded like Scarlett Johansson because they've got OpenAI got sued for doing that. And it was really, I got to use it for a day, and it was quite remarkable to see how far they have gotten with it, because it has the voice inflections that are, it
Mm.
just sounded very human.
It doesn't sound like Siri
No, it
or
doesn't sound like,
Alexa.
why is Siri still like, why haven't they just accepted the fact that Siri is,
It's obsolete.
yeah, and not, I'm surprised that they haven't upgraded it or changed it at all, because the technology is obviously there. OpenAI has it, but it's funny that
That
it's still around.
that's an interesting question. Oh, I was gonna quickly bring up going back. I love how we go back to our days of learning design, learning the skill sets, the tools of designing. So we often go back to like our college days at SCAD, learning industrial design. And for us, I felt like we had a similar dilemma with 3D printing versus doing it by hand. And I always wrestle with when I was working on projects, should I do this on the computer or should I do it by hand? And for me, well, obviously the answer was always by hand because I felt more comfortable working with my hands and I felt that I could accomplish something very close to what I would do in the computer anyways. And also I was limited. I felt like I was limited by how much I knew the 3D modeling software right now. So I was limited by how much I knew how to translate the software and then how to translate my idea
Yeah.
into something digital.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to face that scenario of being limited by how much I knew the tool.
Mm,
That's why I always chose to do by hand. So I was just curious to know for you how was that experience digital or let's say 3D printing versus by hand
yeah.
or a different process.
I was going to ask you actually, how do you determine what tool to use? So, but you answered my question. For me personally, I always felt that limitation with the software. I always felt like
Mm.
the idea that I had in mind was always, there was always a gap of knowing what process to take in order to get to that.
Hmm.
And it really just came down to just not having spent maybe enough time on those programs to know them. And there is also that bias, I think, that I felt for physical things, because there was always this like sense of disconnection between, oh yeah, this model, I printed it, versus this model, I, sanded it, I made it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was this like layer of removal. I met this guy in my first internship, actually, who was just that. He was an industrial designer, but he was just a CAD modeler. And
Mm-hmm.
the way this guy worked, it was just absolute. I remember being mind blown, and I asked him, just like, how do you get to this level? And it was just the same answers, right? Time and experience. Just he enjoyed doing that. He enjoyed taking things from paper and translating them to a three-dimensional model. And the key here, and this, I've seen this pattern in people who are very great with software, and it's that, or just engineers in general, they always take the easiest approach to accomplishing a task. Whereas someone without experience, let's say, will try to model all 4 parts of a specific thing. They will do it once, and they will just make a command, repeat it. That's just one
I see.
simple example, but and this is where, again, coming back to the topic of AI, it's really exciting, because before, you would have an idea of what you would want to do in a 3D program, and you would be blocked by all this technical requirements to know how to get to that. But now with AI could just read the entire technical resources that SolidWorks has, and tell you step by step what you need to do. So the limitations of bringing your dreams into reality, or what you're thinking about, they're slowly vanishing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it's easier than ever to accomplish what you want to accomplish now, and this goes for anything that you want to do. And I feel, in a way, and I think this is very important, especially, let's say, for the class of 2028, to have in mind. Is like, now you have so many tools at your disposal that, yes, competition in anything that you do always has been fierce. It has always been not easy. Anything that you do, whatever you do. And but I feel like at least now we have the tools to tackle these quote unquote impossible or very hard challenges. And if I was a new student, and if I had the mentality that I have now, I would start like crafting, nurturing, cultivating my all these, let's say, social media outlets, that then later on, when I graduate, they could help me, um, they could help me propel my career or kickstart my career.
Yeah.
And I've met a couple recent grads that have done that, and they're they're having a pretty good start in
That's
their
incredible.
careers. Or yeah, they're pretty a good start. They're having a pretty good start, and I think that's the way we should think about, just in general, we should think about using all these tools to your advantage. And these tools, social media, AI,
Yeah.
and focusing now, also making sure that you focus on the quality of
Yes.
ideas, quality of work,
Yes.
and don't lose sight of that. Don't get lost on the execution, but just make sure that you do really good work.
Yeah. I want to add something to this. When we say social media, it's almost like a term that it catches everything. It catches all the platforms, the major platforms. But what we're really talking about, if you dig deeper into what we're saying, It's that you want to expose yourself to the possibilities that are constantly at your disposal in network effects, in what happens when you
Right.
put something out there that has the potential of reaching thousands, if not millions of people with just one effort, with just one action. One post can bring so much exposure to your work and what you're doing. It's just an insane amount of leverage that is possible. It's like,
Right.
it's almost like a miracle of technology, just being able to reach so many people with such little effort, right? Like before, you would have to go into get interviewed by the news, by the media to
And
to
the
get into
newspaper had to write about you.
yeah, or you had to get on TV or something, but now anyone can do it, and it's pretty amazing. No, this is
I
great, and I think this is also notes for ourselves as we're creating these podcasts, because we know that there's not that there's more people will see a 10-second video clip than they will see an hour-long video. And so our job, this goes back to just like portfolio work as well, is to simplify things to open them up to a larger audience. I don't know what you think about that, Caesar.
Yeah, I that's a good question, because I try to always find balance for that kind of scenarios, and I try to, I don't know, it's hard to, I'm gonna have to give it some thought to
Yeah.
that. Yeah, but yeah, it's hard. It's like not a one answer kind
Right.
of question.
Because you do want to give
But
long form, but you also want to be able to like distill it. And sometimes it's very hard to distill things into short clips because there's a lot of nuance, a lot of context that's sometimes missing.
right, and it's hard because you wanna, of course, show everything, but I think it takes trial and error. You start doing it, gauging what's catching, what's sticking to. You just throw things to the wall and see what sticks, and then try to be sensitive to what you feel like the community needs. Try to be
Mm,
sensitive to that. Try to articulate what the community, or try to articulate what people haven't been able to say or show, and you
yeah.
do it for them. So I think that's something important for us as creators and designers, or just in general, to have this sensitivity to interpretation, and to not be afraid of being wrong, or maybe being a little bit off, but you're still like, hey, I'm expressing what you think is that you want to say. And I think as creatives, that's a very important skill to have, a very important skill to nurture, is that sensitivity to interpretation, and to being able to articulate what you think people want, or like what you think people should have. And I think that books for me have been the best tools to shape that intuition. Books and experiences.
Yeah.
But sometimes we're limited by the experiences that we have, so books are a way to get that experience. That's why I evangelize so much the the act of reading, like read books.
Yeah.
A lot of
Totally.
answers are there, like a lot of solutions are there. Read books. People are sharing their experience there.
Eh, eh, eh,
Emulate what they have done.
Yeah. And not just like design books or business books or, the usual topics that are relevant to us. This is my personal opinion here, but I think it's very important to take from everywhere, whatever is interesting, whether it's cooking, whether it's, spirituality or mythology, Russian literature, whatever it is. It just take from there, take from experience wherever your gut will tell you where to go, I
Right.
think.
I,
And
I
listening.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that because interesting people do interesting things. So try your best to do interesting things. And I feel like sometimes when we have this like vast knowledge of different things, it's also important for you to know how to apply, when to apply, how
Yeah.
to apply.
Yeah.
We've said this before. When we read for when we acquire knowledge but we don't apply it, it's entertainment. But when we apply it, then it it takes a different shape and form, and it truly what that knowledge is truly being put into action. And that's again something that the book Think Grow Rich talks about, is that is not only how having the knowledge to do something, but also having the plan of action, how
Mm-hmm.
to apply that knowledge. And that's why I hold that book to such a high regard,
Yeah.
because it truly like put on the spotlight. It revealed to me that knowing is not enough. Yeah, how to apply that knowledge, when to apply that knowledge, what to apply to who, being sensitive to so many things, that in general for business or your career you have to be sensitive to all those elements.
Yeah. I recently was playing with ChatGPT to have it emulate specific characters of Mad Men.
That
And it was really fun. It was really cool because everyone in Mad Men has a very distinct, the TV show has a very distinct role in the business. For those of you who don't know what Mad Men is, it's based in the 1960s advertising show, which is really good. Highly recommend. And one of the characters, who is the account executive, is really just in charge of bringing in new business. And Caesar and I
mm-hmm.
always are covering this topic of without money, there is no design, and without
Yeah.
design, there is no money. And so it's this loop,
Yep. Yep.
right? And it was really interesting to listen to this ChatGPT version of the character that is an account executive. And one of the things that I made it generate is advice on how to deal with clients. And
Oh, what did he say?
he said something along the lines of, when you get a new client, it's not just the work that you're delivering to the client. That work, you have to frame it in a way that it leads to more work, because you're always thinking one step ahead of what's like how your
Oh.
action is going to result in another beneficial action for your business. So creative has a different goal. Their goal is to make things the best that they possibly can. They have a different agenda, but the business, they're like, okay, yeah, this is the thing we're delivering. You're actually needing this other thing as well. And so their job is just to keep bringing in more work. And so balancing those different viewpoints is really important, especially I think as a freelancer and as you're like growing your business. But anyway, that's a really
Mm-hmm.
fun use case. If anyone out there is wanting to hear what their favorite character would have to say about a situation, it's really funny, especially if you choose a character that is known for saying funny things.
It's interesting you bring up the character layer to it, because to me it has been always been I have been intrigued by the moment that we can give AI a body and shape and a character,
Ooh.
because I think that's gonna then there we will transcend We'll go from something that is on the screen, like a chat box, and we'll go also. I'm also looking forward to the moment when AI doesn't have to run on internet. That's a real challenge. That's a real advancement where
Dang.
AI doesn't have to rely on internet or power, energy. Like all of our electronics rely on energy. Like if you don't charge
Right.
them, they're obsolete. They're just like paper.
So
Imagine when you don't have to rely on that.
so you're talking about like these infinite batteries or these self-generating, self-energy. This this you're in like you're living 2200, Caesar, while the rest of
Well,
us are living in 2024.
maybe no. I think it's
Coming.
when it's coming, but when you think about it, if you put your thoughts and your energy towards that, you can make it happen. Like you can make it happen in the time frame that you think you can make it happen.
Yeah. What's that?
And
There's
I
a
remember
principle about that.
Elon
What?
Musk.
Okay.
Elon Musk brought up like said something about if you think that something takes 6 months, it's gonna take 6 months.
Yeah.
If you think something takes 3 weeks, it's gonna take 3 weeks. So
Think it's called
uh,
Parkinson's law. I think.
is it?
Yeah, it's called Parkinson's law. Let me look it up real quick.
Yeah.
It says work expands to fill the available time.
Yes.
Yeah,
Also,
there.
when you like put yourself in these like impossible timelines, you become resourceful and you come up with things that you didn't know you could. And
Mm-hmm.
I felt like this was a recurring scenario or a, an ongoing challenge for us during, in my experience, during my days at Yeezy.
Mm-hmm.
We always had these timelines that seem a little bit, they seem a little bit irrational. But then when I started thinking, and I was often in the trenches, and I was often in the spot of, oh, I have to deliver something by the end of the day. So I had to always like, okay, what is there, what is out there that really exists that can give me 60% of what I'm trying to accomplish. And if I can find something like that and then alter that to give me another 20, 30%,
Yeah.
I will be happy.
Yeah.
But I will still show up with something at the end of the day. And I don't think like things have to hit 100%. Oh, if I don't have it all, then I cannot show it, or I don't have it, or you don't show up. I think if you can at least show up with 70% is better than 0%.
Totally.
So I think having that willingness, yeah, the willingness to show up, it's it's not a skill set, it's more of like an attitude thing. And that's when I realized that innovation for me was like 80% attitude, 20% knowledge.
Yeah, I think about this quote that I think it was Bill Gates. I don't know. One of these guys was saying how they like to hire lazy people, something like
I
that,
was
right?
Bill Gates
And it makes me
because they will
think,
find the easiest way.
yeah, and it makes me think sometimes is being a hardworking person a liability and a disadvantage? Sometimes it can be, I think, when it comes to just not doing that, like not being
Yeah.
effective. Maybe it's not that being hardworking is a disadvantage, but it's not being effective that's a disadvantage.
Also, like getting caught up in details
Yeah,
or
that
getting
too.
caught up in perfectionism.
Oh,
Perfect gets in the way of, or great, or I would rather to be done than perfect, because we will never achieve. It'll be very hard. It will take a lot to achieve something quote unquote perfect, but it's gonna take you a lot of time.
I feel like perfectionism
um,
takes the lives of many fellow creatives in terms of just time and the prolific output.
yes.
Yeah, just
And also is a cultural thing. Like everything is performance driven. You have to get it right the first time.
yeah.
So we live in this like constant fear of missing, of not performing well, of doing something that might not be what we thought it could be or it would be. But then that fear keeps us from just doing maybe the thing that we need to do before we get to the answer. Sim- a similar example that we always bring up is the Nintendo Wii, the portable one.
Oh,
How that one,
the
I think it was like a pilot.
okay.
They remember the portable Wii
Uh-huh.
Nintendo.
Not the
I think
multicolored
it
one?
was like no.
Just a
We had
portable
this
Wii.
like portable, yeah, portable. It looks like a primitive version of the Nintendo Switch,
Okay.
but I think Nintendo with the Game Boy planted the seed to people of portable gaming systems. And the Nintendo, the Wii portable Wii was like, to me, I see it as a pilot for the Switch.
Interesting. Yeah.
So
It's like the iPod
sometimes
was
these
an iteration.
projects, oh really? See, there you go. iPod iteration to the iPhone.
Yeah. I was going to
And
ask you something. It- When you were, I can see some folks in the beginning of their careers feeling uneasy of maybe recycling other work that's not theirs, or they maybe have some mental barriers. How did you, was it the time constraint, or was it like, what was your thought process with that? It was just very like, hey, I'm just trying to deliver. They're not looking at every detail. They're looking at the concept here. That's why I'm going to use.
right.
Okay.
They're also looking at the fact that they wanna they wanna see something tangible. And if you look in history, like all of the projects that have been quote unquote groundbreaking, or all these projects or iterations of projects or prototypes, when you look at it, they've started from they have all most of the time they have always started from somewhere else. They've started from a foundation. They've started from something that already exists, and they have added to it, or like they have morphed that into what they want to do. So like for me, because I have the skill sets, my I can work with my hands. I have the skill sets to form, to morph
Mm,
something that already exists into what I want to do. So that's
mm,
why I'm never afraid of using something that already exists,
mhm.
because I know that I have the skill sets to figure out how to morph it into what I needed to do. And I think we have to approach design, especially like when it comes to innovation, new ideas, new things. We have to approach design in a way that like is not always about creating from scratch. You could, it's just gonna take longer. It might not be what you want, which is still, whether you start from somewhere else or from scratch. I don't think with innovation you're never gonna hit 100%. So for me, it was always more rewarding or better to start from an already existing point. So let's take for an example. If I'm trying to create a boot, I'm gonna look for a boot that looks like the design that I have been given, and then I'm gonna morph that by using materials such as fabric or EVA sheets, or just anything that could help me convey or create something that resembles the essence of the idea. And then like you start, your mind is gonna autofill. It's like connecting the dots. It's like that game of dots. You connect the dots. It's not a smooth line because it's a bunch of straight lines. But when you look at the big picture, it's like, oh, okay, here's the picture of the dinosaur.
Wow. Yeah. It's the more I think about it, the more I realize like it's similar to working also in the digital world where you find frameworks that you build upon and you don't go and reinvent patterns. Like it's not effective to do that, to start from scratch. I was also thinking, when Apple sued Samsung for the phone business and all that stuff back in the day, a bunch of their internal documents and internal designs came to light because of these court proceedings. And it was really cool to see the initial designs for the iPhone, which didn't look like the iPhone we know today. They were based off of Sony designs. So they had
public?
Yes, you can look at it, and I wonder if I can share my screen, but I don't know if I can do that now. But let me see if I can find it really quick. But Sony iPhone court case, if you Google that, maybe you'll be able to see. Yeah, so Apple looked at Sony iPhones for inspiration, and it just made me think of what you were saying, because it's very, they don't have phones here. Pictures, maybe. Let me try to do it. Yeah, so.
Oh wow, look at that.
Okay, so this.
No way.
Yeah, so there's like
Shut
picture
up.
of, I don't know if it's
That's
here.
a carbon copy of iPhone. Is that an iPhone or a Sony?
This was I'm not sure, but basically, I don't know if these are the ones that I was looking at, but here are some. Yeah, you can look at it at your, if you, oh, here, wait, I think it was like prototypes. Yeah. So some of these designs were inspired by Sony here. Yeah. So anyway, it just got me thinking about that really quickly. Anyway, that was
also look at the brown products.
Yeah. The brown,
and it looks like the brown, but it looks like the iPod.
I also think that it's a cool thing that you're basing off of something historical, right? Let me look up the Braun products.
That
Go ahead.
makes me think of this phrase that I've always have stuck in my mind, where your product is as good as your research is. And I feel like,
yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah, that your product is as good as your research.
As good as your research. And I feel like design could take a different angle in terms of look at what already exists and then make it better. Because I remember, I don't know, I've always had this idea.
Oh man, I accidentally pressed. I was trying to stop the. Here, you were saying?
Oh, I was talking about how in design we have this urgency to create new from scratch, or at least that's how I felt in school or like learning in design. And to a certain extent, yes, that's the point of design, is creating new. But I later came on to learn that I had to be mindful of what already exists.
Yeah.
And create based on that, make things better. I don't have to necessarily create new things, but make things better. And
that's powerful. Yeah. Because you see it in art as well. Like people are not reinventing things. They are iterating. They are off interpretation. Like there's 12 different versions of the Last Supper. It just happens that we remember Leonardo's because it's the most innovative in perspective. Oh, wow. So artists are constantly looking at the same ideas, the same motifs, and same as designers. Like imagine how many buttons there are, how many different, shoes come from that.
Wireframes.
Exactly. Exactly.
Shoes, of course. Yes, shoes. Yes.
Anyway, so I think that was a really good wide range of topics that will give a lot of food for thought for the audience throughout the week. We're really interested to hear what you all think about the things that we talked about. How are you using AI these days? If you are at all, what are your opinions? Do you agree or disagree? Let us know in the comments. We read each one and we're curious to hear what you have to say. So this was the Moodboard podcast. My name is Aaron.
And this is Caesar.
And we're two creatives meeting here every week to talk about meaningful things and share our insights with you so that you can unlock your creative potential. We hope you have a great week. See you in the next one.
See you.